So today we are going to be creating our great wave, and we'll be doing the drawing with pencil, outlining with crayon. We'll be using tempera cakes and water to paint, and I don't expect you to finish painting today, but you'll probably get started. And the inspiration for this project is by the artist, Japanese artist actually, and very famous, and his name is Katsuhiko Hukashe, and Hukashe created this painting of the Great Wave off of Kanugawa, and it's actually at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. So if you ever want to see the original painting, or actually it's a woodcut, you can go there to see it. So we're going to kind of create our own great wave today. And you're going to have a sheet of paper like this, and this just gives you some ideas. You can alter it to make it look like your own, of course. And we're going to get a piece of paper. Now this is miniature, half the size of yours, just because it fits on here. And you can decide as the artist if you want to have it tall, vertical, or horizontal. That's completely up to you. And then I'm going to write my name, class code on the back, because most likely you'll be painting today, and it's going to go on the drawing rack. Okay, so once I have it turned over, I'm going to follow step 1, and you're going to start the sloth by drawing the outline of the lower wave in a varied line from one edge to the other. So I kind of want you to look at your paper. This is about halfway where my pencil is. So I want this wave to start, maybe the peak of it to reach that point, and then it's going to go back down. So you're going to start down here, over, if it doesn't have to be exactly like this, and back down, okay? Then you're going to have another one, a wave. It's about a hand's width above the first, and it's going to have this crescent shape wave. It's going to look like it's the one that's about to fold over. And so we're going to start, so if I take up the space, break it in about a half or ish. I'm going to start here and then kind of go like that. Okay, so that's steps 1 and 2. 3, you're going to draw a varied line of curves and zigzags back to the edge to create the white cap. So this is the white cap, would be this part of the wave. And you can see how he has all these really cool designs in it. So it doesn't have to be perfect. So we're just going to have, you can have zigzags. I mean, there's really no wrong way to do that, white cap. Okay. Then on 4, you're going to connect the tip of the wave to the lower one of the curved line. So this is that tip to there. So you're going to tip of the wave, kind of curve it down like that. And then 5 says add a white cap on the lower wave and add another wave behind the larger one if you'd like. So it says if you'd like, so you don't have to. I'm going to. So I'm going to do the same thing here with the white cap. Just doing like, you know, there's not an exact science behind it, just doing that. And then another wave to show there's a wave, some motion from the ocean right back there. So we've got that. And then 6, it says add a horizon line. That's where the sky meets the water or the ground. And that's going to be Mount Fuji in the background. Add curved lines to create stripes on each of the waves. Okay, so we're going to have a line. I'm going to actually, you could have it above this, but I'm going to have mine just kind of going through. So I'm stopping there, picking up my pencil, and then going there. And then I can have Mount Fuji right there. Okay, then we're going to draw these lines to show some motion. And you can draw them actually from each one of those curves or zigzags. It doesn't have to be. And then I could maybe even have one here, like a little one there, showing the motion, the movement of the wave, because it's always kind of curves and then kind of comes back on itself. We'll do the same thing here. Okay, and that's basically all you're going to have drawn on here. If you want to have little details back here, if you want more of a peak that versus a flat part of your mountain back there, you certainly can add that as well. Okay, so once you have that, we're going to get our black crayon. Black oil pastel works too. And basically, you're going to outline all of your pencil lines, okay? And the reason why we do this will create a nice outline for one. It's also going to create somewhat of a barrier because white oil and water, or wax in this case, and water don't mix. So whenever you switch your variations of colors of blue or blue-green, or this will kind of keep those colors from blending or kind of bleeding into the other. So you'll trace over all of it. It takes just a little bit of time. I'm kind of rushing it, but just take your time. You don't need a race to see who finishes first. I'm just going a little faster for demonstration purposes. So we have that right in there. If you want to have like a little bit of landform here, that's fine too, okay? But our focus is on the wave, okay? Now it's time to paint. So if you look at this, there's just a plain old blue, there's green, there's brown, and there's yellow, and there's white. Yeah, white gets dingy really fast. So you can always have a paper towel nearby too. But when I get a color like this, and I went through and cleaned them all out before you guys all started this project, but you never know if the class before you did a good job or not. So what you can do is if you do come across a color or colors that look really dingy, what I'll do is that when I get my clean water, I'll take my brush and kind of go over a section. I don't go over the whole thing, or because it takes a lot longer. Not that you can, but our whole point is not cleaning it up the whole time. But I have like a white ready so I can kind of mix that color with the others. So when I'm doing this, you always have to have water. This is tempera cake, so it's tempera paint, but basically all the water has been taken out. So kind of like watercolor, you have to add the water to activate the color. So I'm gonna, hopefully you can see all that. So I'm gonna choose a brush or two. I'm gonna go to my first color. I'm gonna keep it pretty basic blue. And then I'm gonna paint. Then I can go back in there. There's kind of like a little well of water, so I can just gonna go over there and paint that blue. And I'm gonna kind of do like an every other kind of a thing here. So I'm gonna paint that blue all around, like skipping a part. So I'm just gonna focus on this one wave at a time. And when my brush seems like it's getting a little dried out, I just go into the water. Okay, then I can go into this next spot. So look at what I just did. I didn't add any water on my brush. I just literally went from either side of that blue to create this light blue effect. Okay, that's one option, okay? That's how easy this is. You just have to make sure you kind of spread it with you. Okay, another option is you can take like a color like this blue, and then maybe I would have a blue-green, so I'm gonna go into the green. Oops, maybe a little more green. And I'm gonna add a little green to it. It's just gonna very subtly change that. If you don't want it to be as subtle, then you just have to go to the green, and the more you rub your brush into the color, the darker the color will appear, or the more color will pick up on your brush. That's more green than I wanted. So I'm gonna go in here. Sometimes you have enough that kind of transfers to your brush. I probably should have been using my smaller brush. I'm kind of rushing through this, and I'm not sure why. Usually I take my time, but we're making it work. I'm gonna switch to another brush so you can see how smaller brush. I do have a little, I think a lot more control over what I'm gonna be doing. Then I'm gonna go into the green and paint that. Then I'm gonna go into my blue, a bit of green, paint over that, a little more green. And then I can go in here and just do the lighter color in between. Okay, if you don't want this to bleed, you can always go back into it and then kind of clean it up a little bit. The only thing is you have to be careful of is if you keep wetting an area and wetting an area and wetting an area, you're gonna create a hole in your paper, which we don't want. This is thick paper, but we don't want to create a hole. Now, remember I showed you this white. I used it to kind of tone down my blue. For the white caps, I wouldn't even paint it. I would just leave the paper white. If you want it to be white, leave the paper white. That's going to be your best bet for white. If you want to decide to have some areas where you have maybe some painterly quality, where it's not like perfectly white in an area, you could totally like add like little dots, little dashes, and those will give it some like texture, some nice quality to it, okay? So I've got this blue, and then this area I just painted. This one is blue and green. I'm gonna do a little something different from my background. Maybe my background here, I want it to be pretty dark blue. So one reason why I used the not the oil pastel, the crayon, was it creates a border, okay? Now, does the border always hold up with the paint? As you can see, it did not. And I actually kind of like it personally, okay? Some of us can be perfectionists, and then when the color goes over an area they don't want to go, the paint to go, that can bother them. So if it bothers you, what you can always do is you can go back into the water and then take just a wet brush and kind of go over that edge, and that will kind of tone it down. You could also take a paper towel and blot it. So that would be going down and lifting it up, okay? So I'm gonna do this wave effect down here, slightly change the colors. And then what I do like about this sample is they have like a really pretty sunset. I think that's really cool. You don't have to have a sunset, but I really do like that contrast with that reds and oranges and yellows in the background, because then that warm color versus the cool colors of the waves will really make it stand out. I think it's really nice. So just take your time on it. It's your project. You can have it as perfect and neat as you want, or if you like the colors to bleed, that's great. If you want a real distinct line, my suggestion would be after you paint an area, let's say I did this area here, I wouldn't paint between it if I'm looking for a real defined edge. I would not paint in between here until these two sides are dry. And you'll know it's dry because it's no longer shiny, okay? And then when you touch it, it's not gonna get all over your hands, okay? But the shine will tell you if it's really, really wet still. And then when you finish with this, you're gonna pick it up, place it on the drying rack. So it's safe. If you don't finish it today, remember we have next week, so don't worry about finishing Hookah Shay's Inspired Wave. This is, if you get as far as me, you're good to go for next week.